the three most annoying traits that a friend can have. They're not necessarily the worst, right? The worst trait a friend can have is betraying you and being dishonest, right? And being a bad person in general. This is just, it's not fun to be around this person. And although if you're guilty of this, people might consider you a friend or an associate, but they don't really like hanging out with you. And when you try to hang out with them, they're not the most responsive and they're not as excited. It could just be they just don't like you in general. It's not really something you're doing wrong, but you're just not really doing anything right. But there's a good chance that if you are doing something wrong that is rubbing them off the wrong way, and just you want to be a better friend, right? And also recognize and understand why you don't like certain people, but you can't quite put your finger on it. But you can almost use it as a metric, and you can look at the people in your life and see, are they having these traits? Is it making me not like them so much? And then to actually be honest with your judgment about them, right? And be like, you know what, that's right, that guy's really whiny, or that guy's really selfish, or that guy's a fucking hater, and he's not really cool to be around. And when you actually say it out loud and you actually recognize it, then you'll have a much more clear picture about spending less time with them or even cutting them off. I've had this happen many times where I will tell people, like, hey, that guy kind of sucks. Like, why do you hang out with him out of curiosity? Like, because I recognize that the guy sucks inherently, but also that the friend who's a friend of his isn't really enjoying his company. And I'm like, why do you hang out with him? And he's like, actually, I don't know. A lot of people continue to hang out with people because it's a habit, right? Or because they've known people for a long time, right? And you've kind of created a long investment with them and you kind of feel attached to them. But then once you realize they kind of suck, it's best to actually drop them from your life because they're just taking away from you. You are hugely a product of, the closest 5 people you hang out with, or 10 or 15, right? Everyone that you are seeing with any consistency is having a huge effect on you. And you want to cut out the people who are holding you back and then find people who are going to help you and people who you're going to help too. But you do need to see it from a self-interest point of view. But that isn't selfishness, which is one of the 3 most annoying traits. There's nothing wrong with having self-interest. If you're not going to have your own self-interest in mind, no one is, I promise you. But the 3 most annoying traits a friend can have. So the first one is complaining, whininess, all right? The second one is going to be selfishness, not self-interest, selfishness. It's too much, narcissism, right? And these each have multiple ways that they kind of branch out. And then the last is being a hater, right? So let's go in order. Complaining, right? Complaining is really bad for 2 different reasons. One, when someone is a whiner and a complainer, they put a burden on you, right? A time burden. You have to sit there and actually waste minutes or hours of your life that you could spend doing something else that might be more productive and more fulfilling. And 2, when that person who's whining doesn't really fucking do anything about it, it makes that time that the person spent listening to you, it makes it truly a waste because nothing was actually gained by you whining like a little bitch. All you were doing was using that person as a repository, right? As a, a sponge for your bad emotions, and then you get them out. And now this person just had to listen to you fucking bitch and complain for 3 hours, and then you're like, oh, I feel better, right? It's like you fucking shit all over their face. And then you didn't do anything to stop yourself from fucking shitting all the time, right? And this actually hits pretty close to home. My wife has a friend who I have to remind her all the time, like, I don't even know why you're being friends with this person. And she even says, like, I don't really, I kind of don't like talking to her anymore. But she's an old friend from her, her native country. And she's known her for a long time. So there's that attachment there. But every time this girl calls, she just complains. My wife barely even gets to talk. She just sits there and goes, yeah, Like, she even joked a few times. She had the phone, like, just sitting here, and she's just like, I could do this, and she wouldn't even notice, right? And on top of that, the woman in the conversation is also selfish, right? So these kind of bleed into each other, right? By being a whiner, you're being a bit selfish, right? Because a true friendship, everyone bitches a little bit, right? But a true friend, they kind of share, they help each other with each other's burdens, because things are always easier when you're outside the problem, right? But you help each other with your burdens, but then you also help each other strategize and come up with ways to fix things, right? Because I think that complaining just to complain is a waste of time. I know it's something that women especially like to do, right? Because it's like a bonding activity. But when I see men just bitching for the sake of bitching, I lose a lot of respect for them. So this is also an effect of whining, right? If you're an habitual whiner, you're wasting my time just whining to me. And then on top of that, I'm going to lose respect for you, and I'm just going to, it's just a lot of male friendships, and friendships in general, are built off the fact that you admire this person, right? You respect them. And when I see someone just whining, well, whining is inherently a victim complex. It's saying, I'm a victim of these circumstances, right? When in fact, you can respond to horrible circumstances in great ways and even use them as a positive, right? Actually turn them into a positive thing. But these things are lost when you're a whiner, right? And you're a bitcher and you're a complainer. And so I would suggest you reflect on yourself and ask, when I'm talking to my friends, how often am I complaining? You will be surprised, right? And if you have a good friend, they're going to tell you that you're a complainer. And then also you should examine the people around you and think, okay, do I have people who are always whining, right? And there are people in your life who probably just always seem to be having bad luck. You might have to wonder if they just fucking suck and they're just habitually put in bad circumstances because they make terrible fucking choices. I know bad things do happen, but then you have a discussion of, why do those things happen, and you get into a possible discussion about how karma works, right? And so these things are coming back to them because of choices they made maybe before this lifetime. But that's a whole nother subject and requires you to have a belief in that. So anyways, moving on to selfishness. So selfishness, whining is a type of selfishness, but I mean selfishness in terms of when they talk, they only talk about themselves, which most of the time happens to be fucking complaining, but let's say it's good things. Oh, this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing this and this, right? And not saying, right, a good friend says, oh, I'm doing this and this and this. What about you? Oh, cool. And they actually inquire, right? But a bad friend doesn't even ask, or they ask, but it's more of a formality of like, da-da-da-da-da. Oh, how are you? Yeah, okay, cool. Whatever. No, let me talk, right? I'm sure you've met those kind of people. And what's really sucks is that some of these people are just like, they don't even know it, right? They lack so much self-awareness that they're not even aware that they aren't, or that they are super selfish, right? And then they find themselves in shitty situations and go, oh, why doesn't anyone want to be my friend? Or da-da-da, da-da-da. Why did my marriage fucking implode? Or this and that. Well, probably because you're a selfish piece of shit, right? I would say that not being generous is also selfishness, right? Now, the bare minimum of virtue is just not hurting, right? But I hold a higher standard for like someone who I would consider a friend. Like, not just, oh, he's my friend, I know him, right? But like my friend. And I would say that if you're not a generous person with your time, with your money, whatever it is that you have. If you have money, it's money. If you have time, it's time. If you have wisdom, it's wisdom. If you're not generous, then I would say that's a mark against you. Because being generous is a higher level of virtue. It's good that you're not hurting people. But if you're not generous, then I can't really consider a friend. You almost have to think is, would this person put their life on the line for me? And if the answer isn't clearly no, I really wouldn't consider them truly a friend. And I mean this seriously, because there might be a time in your life when it may not be like literally them dodging in front of a bullet for you, but it could be them, letting you stay on their couch for like months without paying rent because you just, you fucked up, right? But they're there to help you, right? And the kind of friends that you want to have are the ones that do it without I mean, everyone's a little bit going to be like, oh, it's kind of a burden. But the ones who do it, maybe even without asking, right? The friend, when he knows you don't have money, takes you out to dinner. Like, put your wallet away, right? Like, they do it as a natural thing, and they don't, only on rare occasions, and they want you to pay, you want them to pay you back, and selfishness, right? You need to be going out of your way to help people. So this takes place on many levels. On the level of conversation, they only talk about themselves. They only think about themselves. They always talk themselves up. When they go to buy something, they bring you, there's many different standards you can have. You can have the bare minimum, or you can have really, really high standards. I suggest you try to keep your standards as high as possible. But of course, if you want to have high quality people around you, you have to also carry your weight and also be a high quality person who draws those kind of people into your life. Because if you have shitty friends, there's a very fucking good chance you are shitty. All right. And last one, being a hater, right? Obviously, like, this can be them betraying you and gossiping about you and talking shit about you. It could be them being envious, right, of you, and them not liking to see you succeed, right? Whenever you do succeed, they look at you weird. They're not congratulating you. They're not happy for you. Everyone has a little bit of jealousy and envy in them, right? When you see someone succeeding, even if it's your friend. But a good friend is going to restrain it and discipline it, right? And they're going to try their best to be happy for you. But everyone a little bit. Actually, I just had a client recently. He kind of got jealous of a friend, and he was confessing it to me. And I was like, look, it's natural, but the fact that you're aware of it and you're trying your best not to give into it, that's what makes you a good friend. But, gossiping about you, hating on you, being overly competitive with you. Men are, by nature, competitive. And if you have someone as a friend that you respect, part of respect is like, I see you at a high level, and there is this natural urge to want to show that you're on their level to some extent, right? Or relatively. Because if there's too much of a disparity in, one person could be really successful, the other one's really good with girls, or one of them's really, really wise, and one of them's just really cool and sociable, whereas the wise guy is maybe not so sociable. Some friends kind of like cover each other's weaknesses. But if you are in a friendship where one guy is just like better, and there are people in the world who are just fucking better, right? Let's not play this illusion that, everyone has something. Some people are just better than others, okay? And if you have someone who's just a step above the other person by enough orders of magnitude, I would say that it's not so much a friendship. They might be friendly with each other. They might care about each other. But in my mind, to be friends, you have to be somewhat equal with each other. But that's a whole nother discussion. But there's always a little bit of, if someone's here, you should try to compete to make yourself better. But it's a friendly competition, right? But there's a point where things get hostile. And it can happen in very subtle ways. And you want to be on the lookout for it, right? But definitely be on the lookout. Watch people's words when you, when you get a girl and he makes a comment on, he doesn't think she's that hot, or, this or that, or, she's a slut, or, if you, win at a game and he's like, you just got lucky, or this and that. Like, pay attention to how he responds to when good things happen to you, and see if he is happy for you or if he's not. And the more brazen someone is with their hating, that means that's the less they respect you, right? Because they're not afraid of the consequences of being so open about their envy for you and their hating on you. And that means, that they don't believe that there should be consequences, right? A good friend on equal terms, they should, to a certain extent, not fear each other, right? But respect at its core is you're afraid of the consequences, not of like what that person will do to you, But I'll put it this way. They should be afraid of losing you because you do provide value. That's what they should fear. Not that you're going to like smack them in the mouth, right? That would be in a very, very extreme circumstance. Very, very few instances would ever warrant that. But they should be afraid to lose you. And if someone isn't afraid to lose you, there's two possibilities. One, you're not providing a lot of value to their life, which is 99.99999% of circumstances, pretty much 100. And the other is that they are so beyond the need for validation of friends that even if you are amazing, they're just fine without you. And if that's the case, then you're dealing with a person who is definitely out of your league because they are a very special human being. So yeah. Anyways, examine if you have these traits. Examine the people surrounding you if they have these traits, and start acting accordingly. This could mean distancing yourself from people, cutting people off. It could mean improving yourself drastically, because I fucking guarantee you have some of these. Okay, to a lesser or greater extent, right? And for me, I'm always questioning if I'm doing these, right? Complaining. I'm like, there's times where I find myself just like, da 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 da, and I'm like, wouldn't I be a more entertaining person to be around if I just complained less, right? There's ways to use events without complaining. Like for me, when something happens, I'll describe the situation. Maybe I can do a video on, how to do these things in a cool way. I don't know how I would exactly like title that, right? But like, I'll give you one little trick with complaining, for instance. You want to complain that X person was a dick to you, right? So you get on, a call with your friend and text your friend. And you're like, hey, buddy, you know what? I just had this situation. I was at this place and this guy started being a dick to me. And, I didn't quite know how to handle it. I wanted to handle it like this, but then I thought that would be too aggressive. But then I didn't want to handle it like this. And I thought it would be too docile. And, I tried to find this, what do you think? Was that a good approach? That's such a cool way to discuss something negative because you're turning it into a problem solving, which men love to do, right? We want to solve problems. We want to master things. We want to do cool things. And it's actually improving both of you because you're strategizing on how to better handle situations, right? It could be anything. It could be an event where someone was a dick to you. It could be a business idea. Hey man, I have this idea. What do you think? Da 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 da. Oh, cool. That's good, or that's retarded, right? And you get into a conversation with your friend where you're strategizing. So instead of complaining, strategize. Selfish. You can talk about yourself, right? It's just a certain spectrum of like how much did you talk to yourself. Make sure that you are trying to talk about the other person and strategize with them in their life just as much, if not actually a bit more than you do. A good friendship, the better friend is the one who is talking about themselves less, right? The other person talks 60, I'm going to talk 40, right? But if that disparity gets too large, then that person who's constantly improving themselves, trying to talk about themselves less, is going to recognize that the other person is a bit fucking selfish in the way they express themselves. And then instead of hating, force yourself to have sympathetic joy. Force yourself to be happy for people, even if there's something inside of you that's like, I wish I could have gotten, a job with paying that much, or I wish I could have gotten a, super hot girlfriend, or I wish I could have, I wish I could have the body that they have, or I wish I could have the opportunities that they have, right? Use those opportunities or those negative moments in your heart as fuel to motivate yourself. Like, yeah, I'm happy for you, and I want to be, as good as you. That's using someone as inspiration, and tell them that. Be like, man, this is just beautiful friendship, man. It's so cool these things are happening to you. I'm actually low-key jealous, but you know what? I'm going to use it to, it's inspiring, and I'm gonna do my best to try and follow in yours, and I really admire you for that. That's such a beautiful thing you can say to someone, right? But then also force yourself to be happy for them, even if you have to like force a smile, like, okay, I need to be happy for them. I need to be happy for them, and actually like just like fuck it into your own mind, force it into your own mind, and it will work. You just have to recondition yourself, because you've been conditioned as a hater for whatever reason. You can, if you can be conditioned for negative things, you can condition yourself for good things. Very possible. Anything can be done in that manner. Okay, so that's a little sneak peek on how to turn these annoying traits actually into positive ones. So anyways, love you guys. Best wishes. Good luck. I'm gonna stop recording. Beep.